to make that introduction. And I also appreciated the exaggerations. Thank you very much. No, I'm extremely honored to be up here. I really am. To be presented this award from my colleagues at SCI. Thank you to the board of this unique and impactful society. I have been an SCI member for many years and have often been in the audience of this annual event. It is humbling to be standing here, knowing so many of the industry leaders who were SCI Chemical Industry Award recipients in past years. It means a lot to me, it really does. It's especially gratifying to have many of my colleagues and advisors here this evening as well, including Hallstar's board, members, and senior executive team. Thank you for being part of this occasion. You know, as I look around this room, I also see many individuals who have been my mentors, role models, and sounding boards throughout my entire career. You know, friends like you in this audience, along with my family members who are also here, have helped me make my life very rich and fulfilling. My thanks and congratulations to everyone at the Hallstar Company. It is not false modesty on my part to say that this award belongs to Team Hall and the company that we built together. I hope by the following remarks that I can convince you of my sincerity when I say that Hallstar is tonight's true honoree. As Ashley told you, Hallstar is a specialty chemical supplier with two current businesses: polymer modification for industrial applications and beauty and personal care and ingredients. And we are actively looking for a third leg, so I just might throw that out there. The way we are organized and how we collaborate with customers, and frankly our size, allows us to be efficient and effective in delivering, in many cases, very unique chemistry solutions to the industry. Now, because we're in the business of chemistry, we have the opportunity and the gift of remaining eternally relevant, evolving to address the needs and preferences of our customers, and continuously learning about our responsibility when it comes to our communities and to the small planet on which we live. This means, for example, that Hallstar's products, like many of the specialty chemicals and chemistries that are made by the companies in this room, are increasingly nature-derived and sustainably produced. Now, my time at Hallstar has been quite a journey. In 1986, I was living in the Philadelphia area and working at FMC, as Ashley mentioned, when an opportunity arose with a group of Chicago-based chemical executives, including my former boss. We had the chance to purchase one of FMC's distribution partners from third-generation family owners who were ready to sell. We closed that deal in December of 1986. Now, the prospect of moving back to Chicago, where my wife Valerie and I had begun our married life, dovetailed nicely with Valerie's insistence, already well established at the time, that we move back to Chicago. Now, to put it more plainly, she was definitely returning to Chicago, but she hoped that I would join her. I began working on this new venture while Valerie packed up and sold our home in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and managed the purchase of a new home in Illinois. She did all this with our 3-year-old son, John, who is here tonight, in tow, and while 8 months pregnant with our daughter, Ashley, who you already met. It is truly remarkable to look back on all that Valerie accomplished during her time in our family. It's absolutely remarkable. And simple fact is, Hallstar would not have become what it is today, and I certainly wouldn't be up here accepting an award from the SCI without her. Her talent, commitment, and determination during that period, and frankly every day since, are the reason all of this is possible. So let me take a moment, please, to express my deepest thanks to Valerie for being my partner in this journey. Thank you. would love to be able to say that All-Star came out of the box in 1986 really strong. That really wasn't the case. I like to describe the first decade or so of the company's existence as unmarred by progress. We were working very hard, but I can't say there was much to show for our early efforts. While we were a new organization, our dynamics mirrored the old top-down workplace. There was an unspoken divide between owners and workers. The owners saw themselves as building a company and saw the workers more like residents than builders themselves. The attitude led to, among other things, a leadership practice of opaque decision-making and lack of information sharing. We weren't even communicating relevant financial results with most of our employees. It's really hard to imagine now that we were doing that. Even back in the 80s, those of you who have been around that long, there was a lot of new recognition and research pertaining to how positive corporate cultures and employee engagement impact company success. But All-Star hadn't really caught up with those new insights. I became increasingly convinced during that time that our lack of progress was tied to a stodgy and somewhat cliquish culture, and that ultimately the nature of the company's culture will trump even the greatest strategy. Now, All-Star has evolved significantly in terms of markets, geography, acquisitions, and organizational design, but I believe nothing has been more transformational than the All-Star culture shift that began in the late 1990s. We were essentially turning the company inside out, starting with establishing and consistently communicating a set of core values that we still follow today. Those values focus on employees first, with an emphasis on collaboration and contribution at every level. Importantly, we want every employee to understand the why of our company. There's a story about my grandfather, an Italian immigrant that has always inspired me when it comes to the type of ownership culture, or the why, I was envisioning. Now, many of you have heard this story with my family more than once, so I apologize to you in advance. My mother's father came to the United States as a 17-year-old, all by himself, and first settled in the Lower East Side neighborhood of this great city. Over the years, he earned a living as a grocer, a bookkeeper, apartment building manager, construction worker, and even cook on a commercial fishing boat. A history of perseverance and grit that was largely lost on me when I was growing up. When I would ask him about his life in New York and what he did before I was born, he would always tell me, I built the Empire State Building. In fact, he did work on the construction of that building, along with roughly 3,400 other laborers. But he didn't tell me that he had worked on the Empire State Building or that he had been a riveter on the crew. He said he built it. He understood the why of work. Even now, whenever I visit Manhattan and catch sight of the Empire State Building, I'm reminded of my very smart and hardworking grandfather, who took pride in his contribution and embraced the project's larger purpose. That is the ownership mindset and culture I've tried to encourage at All-Star. As I was striving to set that tone, I became increasingly convinced that an employee shareholder program would make a lot of sense as part of ensuring that incentives were properly aligned. I'll never forget a conversation with a senior All-Star colleague at the time that clarified for me in a simple way why such a program needed to be a priority for us. He asked me if I ever washed a rental car before returning it. And I said, no. He said, exactly. Always stuck with me. An employee shareholder program is typical and fairly easy to do in publicly held companies. And even private equity funded companies will share equity with key executives. It turned out to be more complex to establish this type of program in a private company than I expected. But with the right team of advisors, who's sitting right over here on our board, as a matter of fact, we got it done, and it's been a very, very successful initiative. Now, building a people-focused culture is a never-ending process. There will always be further to go and more fine-tuning. And certainly at All-Star, we've seen firsthand how quickly a culture can be derailed if not perpetually monitored and nurtured. I believe part of keeping our culture on track is grown out of the clarification of All-Star's purpose, or its why. And that purpose is one that is shared with many of the companies represented in this room. We want to use the science of chemistry to make the world safer, more functional, and more adaptable to social and environmental changes. The chemicals we produce may remain important to our customers. But then again, and perhaps with the passage of time, will come changing preferences and needs. The one thing that we can trust is that the world will always need great chemistry. It'll always need great chemistry. My hope is that every team member at All-Star sees themselves as part of this larger purpose, and as a result, considers themselves leaders in their own right. There is one other aspect of All-Star's operation that is essential to creating a values-oriented culture. Culture-driven organization focused on purpose and impact, and that is our long-term approach to building this organization. Back in the 70s and 80s, as I mentioned, executive conversations about employee culture were becoming more common. During that period, I remember a story about a chemical company chairman being lobbied to sit through a presentation on culture. After numerous attempts from his staff to set up the discussion, he agreed to a meeting with their culture consultant on a Friday afternoon. He listened to the expert intently, while his underlings eagerly awaited his reaction. At the end of the meeting, they were pleasantly surprised when the chairman appeared enthused about the topic. "I really like this," he said to his team. "I want you to get me a new culture by Monday." That actually really did happen, by the way. And if only it were that easy. I might not have always appreciated the power of long-term mindset in business when I was younger, but my strong belief now is that what I've wanted for All-Star since the company's inception can only be produced if we focus. My shorthand expression for this perspective is the 100-year plan. Our decisions at All-Star are made under the assumption that the company will be around far into the future, still private and still focused on chemistry over chemicals. We are considering the next generation and the generations after that and how our strategy will benefit the company they will be stewarding. The markets and regions where we operate will likely change over time, but the basic framework of our culture, values, and purpose are meant to stay intact. When you think in terms of a 100-year plan, it's remarkable how priorities can shift. There's a real power in it. And the more I practice this perspective, the more I see how strongly so many forces in the business world are designed to steer us in a different direction. Take, for example, the sustainability initiatives that the chemical companies are increasingly publicizing. Worthwhile efforts, to be sure. We are doing the right thing for our customers. We're doing the right thing for our planet. But I am struck by how easily such programs can morph into high-end marketing projects. While with catchy phrases and fancy publications, there's a certain humility missing from many communications on this topic. If sustainability is approached like any other chemical industry trend, I feel we're missing an opportunity to proudly lead and educate our constituents. For example, I don't need to tell this audience in particular, there is no such thing as chemical-free. It's sustainable is not always natural. And natural is not always sustainable. And natural is not always safe. It's complex. It's chemistry. And no one is better equipped than the chemical industry to figure this out. I don't believe we should forever be playing defense about our industry's activities. We are the experts. The best sustainability ideas and safe, environmentally responsible solutions will come from chemists. They always have, and they always will. Just like the many chemistry innovations that are showcased in the Science History Museum in Philadelphia, where SCI operates. My instruction to the All-Star team has been to create a sustainability program. Move our operation in the right direction, prioritize the steps that have the most impact, and communicate transparently. Be humble in the face of these complex challenges, but always also proud of what All-Star and this industry can accomplish. A 100-year plan allows for a sustainability approach. It may seem antithetical to the business world's current philosophy, but All-Star does not need every strategic decision to be transformational. Transformation at All-Star can be iterative. Of course, the luxury of that mindset is often out of reach for public or private equity funded organizations. I realize that private companies have an advantage here. And certainly we are all called on at times to plan out the next 1 to 3 to 5 years. But that is responsible leadership. But I also encourage all leaders in our industry, no matter the size or status of their company, to consider a 100-year plan of strategy and innovation wherever possible. It is how we will move the dial towards sustainability and a better world. And in case you haven't guessed, I am very optimistic about this industry's ability to lead these efforts. CEOs tend to be optimists. I've worked in chemical manufacturing for over 40 years, and I continue to be amazed at the continual inventiveness I see. The chemists, engineers, and business innovators, both those whom I've been fortunate enough to work alongside, and future professionals like those the SCI supports, have the talent and knowledge needed to solve these very toughest of problems. As my hero Ted Lasso might say, you've got to believe. You've got to believe. You know, I really would like to express my very profound thanks to our industry, to my teammates at Hallstar, and to my colleagues in this room for a career that I have loved, and one that has fascinated and challenged me. 4 other heroes of mine once wrote that in the end, the love we take is equal to the love we make. I am a huge, huge Beatle. Over the years, I have given much of my heart and my aspirations to the chemical business. But in return, this industry and its people have given me so much that I cherish. I do want to thank and call out a major thank you to Risa Thomason, SCI America's Executive Director, for the commitment and diligence she brings to sustaining this great organization. My thanks to my family, to my friends who have supported and inspired me. I am such a lucky man to have you all in my life. And finally, thank you to the SCI for this honor and for giving me the opportunity to share these reflections and my gratitude with each of you. Thank you very much.